bright and gifted 12-year-old girl, admired for her talents in ballet, piano, and academics. Her life seemed perfect, living in the quiet hills of Galicia, Spain, with two loving parents. But one day, she disappeared. Hours later, a tragedy that no one would have imagined in their wildest dreams took place. A tragedy so scary that it shocked waves through the country. But the real horror came when the investigation began to unravel a series of dark secrets. What could have happened to this innocent child, and why? The truth was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. This is the disturbing story of the Asunta case. Born on, Asunta had an unusual start to life. At just old, she was adopted by a wealthy and influential Spanish couple. The couple, Rosario and Alfonso, had been unable to have children of their own, partly due to Rosario's lupus and the doctor advising them against pregnancy. That's when their desire to adopt led them to China, where they found Asunta. They then decided to adopt her and fulfill their need of wanting a child. She then became their daughter and returned to Spain with them, where her new life began in the picturesque city of Santiago de Compostela. Rosario, a lawyer from an esteemed Galician family, and Alfonso, a well-respected journalist, seemed to give Asunta every opportunity a child could dream of. The girl was raised in a privileged household, attended the best schools, and was immersed in various extracurricular activities. Asunta was a talented ballet dancer, a skilled pianist, and a violinist. Her academic performance was so strong that she skipped a year in school, which was an impressive feat for any child. But behind this picture-perfect life, not everything was as it seemed. The marriage between Rosario and Alfonso had long been on the rocks. While outwardly they appeared to be loving and devoted parents, the cracks were already forming beneath the surface. In early 2013, their marriage finally hit a breaking point when Alfonso discovered Rosario had been unfaithful. What followed was a bitter separation, with the couple divorcing on February 14, 2013. A day when every couple celebrates love, but it was not the case in this. Despite this, they seemed to maintain a functional relationship, co-parenting Asunta. Asunta split her time between their two homes, which were close enough that she could walk between them. However, Asunta's life was slowly unraveling as she lost her maternal grandparents, figures she had been deeply close to. Life unravels no matter what, and tragedy was unraveling for Asunta. Rosario's parents, respected members of the Galician elite, both passed away just a few months apart, leaving Asunta heartbroken and struggling emotionally. It's easy to imagine that the girl's mental state was fragile, dealing with the loss of loved ones while also watching her parents' relationship disintegrate. As time passed, along with her mental health, her physical health was also deteriorating, and that's when the final blowout happened. Rosario was admitted to the neurology department at the hospital. Her health had taken a turn for the worse as she was experiencing dizziness, trouble walking steadily, and even had one of her eyelids drooping. She stayed in the hospital for a few days, remaining under care. As the months rolled by, a dark cloud seemed to settle over their lives. By the summer of 2013, things took a chilling turn. In July, Rosario made a shocking claim as she said a mysterious man had broken into their home. The intruder didn't stop at a robbery as he went straight for Asunta, attempting to strangle her in her own bedroom. The terror of that night would soon pale in comparison to what was coming. In the dead of night, Rosario was startled by strange noises echoing through the house. Heart pounding, she rushed to Asunta's room, only to be met with a terrifying sight of a man of short stature, wearing latex gloves, was hovering over her daughter, his hands wrapped around Asunta's throat. Rosario lunged at the intruder without a second thought, fighting him off with sheer desperation. The man fled into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. But in a shocking twist, despite the horror she had just witnessed, Rosario never reported the attack to the police. The silence that followed felt almost more sinister than the attack itself. Asunta was traumatized as she briefly mentioned the incident to a close friend over WhatsApp, but never spoke of it again. The event seemed to fade into the background, but its strange and frightening nature left a mark on those who later heard about it. Was it a real attack, or the beginning of a far more calculated plan? Around the same time, teachers at Asunta's music academy began noticing strange behavior in the once very vibrant girl. She would come to class weak and unfocused, often stumbling and half asleep. These incidents happened repeatedly, and when questioned, Alfonso explained that she was dealing with allergies and that antihistamines were causing her drowsiness. But it wasn't just the teachers who were noticing Asunta's strange behavior. Asunta confided in a friend that her mother had given her some sort of bitter-tasting powder that knocked her out for hours. What could this bitter-tasting be? And what does this have to do with the story? Yet despite these clear warning signs, no one connected the dots. With things escalating, something more tragic was about to happen, which then took place. On September 21st, 2013, the tragic events that would shock Spain began to unfold. Asunta was missing. Then, when the CCTV cameras were checked, she was seen at 2 p.m. walking toward her father's house, where the two had lunch together. Afterward, she left and was once again caught on camera, walking toward her flat at around 5:21 p.m. Rosario herself was also seen returning home around later that evening. Rosario called the police to report her daughter missing. According to her, she had left Asunta at home doing homework while she went to their country house in Teo, which is a short 20-minute drive from Santiago. When she returned around 9:30 p.m., Asunta was gone. She frantically called Alfonso and several friends, but no one had seen or heard from the young girl. Initially, Rosario's story seemed believable, but as investigators delved deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. CCTV footage revealed that had stopped at a gas station on their way to the country house around, contradicting Rosario's initial claim that she had left her daughter at home. When confronted with the footage, Rosario changed her story, stating that she had indeed brought Asunta with her, but dropped her off quickly before heading back to Teo. Her changing narratives raised red flags, and the police were beginning to suspect foul play. As time passed and people were frantically searching for Astuna, a shocking sight was witnessed by two men. In the early hours of two young men stumbled upon a horrific mother's 5:28 p.m. Rosario and Asunta, 6:20 p.m. September 22nd, 2013, light. Lying on a dirt road near Teo, Jus was Asunta's lifeless body. She was tied up with her face, calm as if she were asleep, but her body told a different story. She had been. An autopsy revealed that Asunta had been given a lethal dose of lorazepam, which is a tranquilizer that was far beyond the safe limit for a child and even an adult. The discovery sent shockwaves through Spain. How could this have happened to such a bright, promising young girl? The immediate suspects, with no question, were her parents, who had already been under inquiry due to the contradictions in their statements. Both Rosario and Alfonso were arrested on suspicion of murder just days after Asunta's body was found. As the investigation unfolded, disturbing details came to light. it was revealed that the powder we discussed about, turns out it was lorazepam, and that Asunta had been drugged on multiple occasions in the months leading up to her death. Both Rosario and Alfonso were implicated in giving her lorazepam, which caused the drowsiness and strange behavior her teachers had noticed. Investigators now believed that the parents had been systematically drugging their daughter in preparation for her murder. But why would her own parents drug her to death? The trial that followed captivated the nation. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of how Rosario and Alfonso had plotted their daughter's death. On the day of the murder, they allegedly drugged her with suffocated her, and disposed Rosario's attempt to cover her tracks further incriminated her, as she had been caught trying to retrieve a piece of orange twine from her country house, the same twine used to bind Asunta's body. Rosario dug her grave with a small piece of evidence she left behind. An orange twine might seem like an insignificant detail, but this is how the authorities confirmed she was the killer. Throughout the trial, Rosario and Alfonso maintained their innocence. Their stories were inconsistent, and they continued to change their accounts, but the evidence against them was overwhelming. At the end of the trial, which lasted more than 4 weeks and involved 135 witnesses, the jury reached a verdict. After 4 days of deliberation, they found both parents guilty, resolving some of the main issues in the case, but still leaving certain doubts unanswered. On sentence, both parents were found guilty of their daughter's murder and in prison. The High Court of Justice of Galicia made its final decision, rejecting. The court upheld October 30th, 2015, 18 years. On March 16th, 2016, the appeals from the 18-year prison sentences for each of them, but acknowledged something significant, as it was Rosario who had physically suffocated their daughter, Asunta. Then, on November 22nd, the Supreme Court also dismissed their appeals. They pointed out that although there wasn't solid evidence placing Alfonso inside the house when the murder occurred, he was still held equally responsible. The court ruled that Alfonso had played an essential role in carrying out the crime. Since their imprisonment, even though they were held in the same prison, Rosario and Alfonso never saw each other again, except during court appearances. After their sentencing, any remaining connection between them completely faded away. Even after the verdict, many questions remained unanswered. What drove these parents to kill their children? Some speculated that money was a motive, as Asunta stood to inherit a significant sum from her grandparents. The police ruled out financial gain as a primary reason, and no clear motive was ever established. Others believed that Rosario's deteriorating mental health played a role in the crime. She had suffered from depression and lupus, and her behavior had become increasingly erratic in the months leading up to Asunta's death. Rosario's story came to an even darker end when she took her own. She had attempted suicide twice before, and it seemed that the weight of her crimes and her deteriorating mental state had finally caught up with her. Asunta's death remains one of the most chilling and heartbreaking cases in modern Spain. It's a reminder that even in the most seemingly perfect families, unimaginable darkness can lurk beneath the surface. The case continues to haunt those who followed it, leaving many to wonder, how could this have happened to such a bright, promising young girl? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.